In the 6 years I've been divorced, I've been asked many, many times if I feel lonely by many, many different people in many different ways. And of course, there were times where I did feel lonely. In fact, I felt lonely when I was married. Maybe that's when I felt the loneliest. But now, when people ask me, I can honestly tell them, no, I never feel lonely anymore. And there's a lot of processes and things I've done to get me here where I feel good and okay and fine. And art has been one of those. Art started helping me before I knew it was helping. And today I thought if it helped me, maybe it can help you too. So today I want to share with you some sketchbook ideas that help me feel less lonely or not lonely at all. Let's get creative. Today we're going to work in my watercolor paper sketchbook, and I chose watercolor for this video because this is the medium that usually gives me the least resistance to start. Not messy at all, easy to set up, and takes very little space. I'm also starting with something I already enjoy painting. So I'm painting a branch with leaves using all of the colors, preferably in rainbow order, and letting them mix together as I paint. As I mentioned in the intro, art started helping me before I knew it was helping me. So today I'm going to share my process for the pages we create, but mostly I am going to share with you my thoughts on how I think art has helped me, what worked for me, and what makes me never feel lonely anymore, even though I spent most of my time alone. The idea with this first page is to start simple. We need the level of entry to be low. Why? Well, because probably if you're feeling lonely, your motivation is low too. I used to resent people who would tell me to go out, meet people, reach out, be social. Are you kidding me? I was feeling sad in my loneliness. I had zero motivation. I needed something that didn't need that much energy for me to get. So using watercolors for me is simple, but for you, it could also be just using a pen and paper. So keep that in mind. What we need is something that is not complicated, that you can almost do it automatically. Why? Well, because the first step is to get your mind distracted. What makes us feel lonely is not really our current situation, but our mind racing with thoughts about that situation. Learned thoughts about loneliness and what that entails. So, first, we need to distract the mind to quiet it down before changing its beliefs. So, I finished painting my entire branch, and once it dried, I wanted to play with it a little bit more. I wanted to see how adding large, transparent, colorful circles on top would look. Now, these are my cheapest watercolors. They are the cheapest I own. I got them for $3. The pigment on these is incredibly strong, so even though the page was dry, once I painted the circles on top, a lot of the paint from underneath moved and I got some extra blending. I was okay with this because I like experimenting and seeing what comes from that. So I kept adding circles, overlaying them a bit to see what effects I got, learning from what worked and didn't. Filled everything with circles, and once that layer dried, I used a black fine pen to outline the leaves. And because the edges were now wobbly, I decided to echo those by using wobbly and double strokes, a little like sketching on top. I liked how these outlines seemed more casual, matching all of the colorful goodness. I removed the washi tape, and this is the end result. First page to show you do not need to create something complicated. You just need to make something that can hold your attention and stop your mind from racing. I'm sure your mind will love all the yummy colors more than comparing your life with others. Moving on, the second way to engage your mind is to paint or draw something you really like. I'm choosing something I love and that I can't believe I haven't painted in one of my sketchbooks yet. I'm painting magical, beautiful ladybugs. I think they are so amazing and precious. They have the power to improve any day, right? There's no way you can find a cute ladybug and not smile at your own luck. Like I said, I really like and enjoy the process of seeing watercolors blend into each other when I paint with wet on wet pigment. So I started by painting a lot of circles on my paper, random circles of different sizes, mixing colors to see which combinations I like the most. Oh, and I wanted to show you, a lot of people ask me how I keep my paper from warping with working with watercolors. And honestly, it always warps even a little bit because we're using water on paper. But to keep it as flat as I can, especially when I'm painting, I sometimes hold the page I'm working on to the rest of the book with binder clips. Now, the circles had dried and it was looking very random, very incomplete. So I thought I would paint leaves behind the ladybugs for them to rest on. I painted the first ones and realized the size of the leaves that I chose was going to make it look weird. And also, I could not fit as many leaves as I had ladybugs on this page. So, using some water, I pulled that pigment out and covered the entire background instead. I helped the background dry, and once it did, I grabbed a tiny paintbrush and started painting tiny little leaves. I honestly didn't have a clear vision of what I was going for, but I thought the tiny branches would be a better intricate background for these random spots. And yes, painting all of the tiny leaves with the small brush took a long time. I actually checked how long. It took me 42 minutes, so almost an hour. But this is an hour where we're not thinking about what other people are doing. This is an hour where you're not looking at somebody else's stories on social media and feeling left out. It's an hour where you're enjoying yourself, where you are listening to music or an interesting book. And at the very least, it's an hour where your mind is occupied by thinking, oh, where should I paint the other leaf? How should I draw it? Should I fill the space? And then you notice your mind even starts to go ahead. You think ahead, like, how am I going to outline the ladybugs? What else can I add to them, etc. And in this space, you're not only getting distracted and redirecting your thoughts, you are also feeding your mind with new things, new exciting thoughts. You are exercising your creativity in a healthy way, because what you think of other people's lives, it's actually you being creative by making assumptions of things you actually know nothing about. Now tell me you are not creative. But now you'll have these new thoughts, and these will leave you in a process of self-discovery, even if you're not aware of that immediately. With your art practice, you will understand yourself better. And let me tell you, the best way to not feel lonely is to become friends with yourself. And I'll touch more on that as we move forward, but for now, I wanted to show you that I finished the background and how it looks. I think this definitely works better for my ladybugs. And now it was time to add the details to the ladybugs with the black pen. I didn't want to outline them traditionally, but try different little adjustments. So at first I tried drawing the double line like I did on the previous page. And I also tried different sizes of heads for all of them. And I replaced all of the dots with hearts and then used different sizes and different placements and different shapes for all of these little hearts. So I definitely pushed my creativity just a little bit more by trying to make each ladybug different from the other, and by using hearts, which is my favorite symbol, in a different way. Of course, I think some of the ladybugs are cuter than others, but it was worth trying different compositions and using my time wisely. So here we are. I removed the tape, and this is how the page ended up looking. I really, really like it. And now I know ladybugs, it's a subject that I definitely need and want to revisit. Let's go to the third page. And here I want to talk a little bit more about getting to know ourselves and becoming friends with ourselves first. And to do that, I want to use an art exercise that is widely known as a tool that helps with self-reflection. I am going to paint a mandala. Well, actually 3 mandalas, because last minute I chose not to have a circle in the middle of my page, but to have 3 circles off to the sides and play with composition. I started by simply tracing circles from objects I had around me on my desk, and then I made the pencil lines for those lighter. And if you didn't know, of course, you could draw these circles by hand, because you can definitely create a mandala that is not perfectly symmetrical. Actually, as I start adding color to mine, let me first give you the definition of a mandala. The word mandala is Sanskrit for circle or center. A circle with a configuration of patterns and shapes that represent the universe, wholeness, and the spiritual journey, both in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Now, mandalas became popular in New Age spiritualism for healing, as well as in art therapy and coloring books for stress relief and mindfulness. I'm sure you know this. But mandalas do not need to be perfectly symmetrical. While traditional sacred mandalas emphasize the radial symmetry and balance, there are no strict rules forcing perfection in mandala art. They only need to be as circles with the signs within it that represent wholeness, unity, and the cosmos. Mandalas mostly use symmetry because this usually reflects balance and harmony, but you don't need to make yours like that. What we care for, especially today, is about the process of creating repetitive patterns that can quiet the mind and offer concentration and self-reflection for us. This is how we are using it. So painting mandalas is definitely a beautiful process to sit with yourself, to get to know yourself, to reflect on your own likes, choices of colors, pattern, etc. You've been watching me add color to mine with super watered down strokes, of course, again, letting the color blend, because that's a process I enjoy. And after my first layer dried, I started to add more details. At first, I decided to play with the shape of this brush and add all of these markings around the circle, but I ended up not liking that at all. This was too sharp, like too aggressive for me. So I realized it's not for me. This is not representing me. So I decided to grab a brush with a lot of water and just soften all of those markings and turn them into one stroke. Then I changed my brush and started to add more details, and like I was just explaining, you can see even with these loose strokes, I use the same repetition and rhythm. So even though I'm creating something definitely not perfectly symmetrical or geometrical, the process can still give me the same benefits. And as I go through this repetitive process that really doesn't need much explaining, let me keep talking to you about becoming friends with ourselves. We rarely take the time to know ourselves enough. I know, as a mom especially, you tend to forget about yourself. You know everything about your kids, about what everybody needs, but do you really know what you like yourself? Honestly, I think we spend so much time thinking how we can make our friends, our partners happy, when we could spend that time thinking of little things that could make ourselves happy and really trying to understand our emotions and where they come from. Because we want to please others, but the reality is that that perfect friend that you think may solve your loneliness, or that perfect partner, that person does not really exist. And seeking those levels of perfectionism in people will make you feel lonelier, because nothing you'll do will manifest that person in your life. So honestly, it's always better to invest on yourself first, to get to know yourself first, and then you can share with others. And please always remember, being alone, that's one thing, but feeling lonely, it's an entire different thing. And I am not a therapist. I'm only sharing my personal experience and the beliefs that have led me to not feel lonely, not only in my 6 years as a divorced woman, but with all their friendships and relationships. Now I honestly want my time alone. I really cherish it. I love it. And don't get me wrong, I am a super social person. I love seeing friends, family, and going out. I am Latina after all. I am always the person who wants to organize get-togethers. I am that friend, the one encouraging the happenings. But I'm also the one who says, this weekend, not this weekend, my plans are to stay in my house, painting, organizing by myself. That's how much I've come to appreciate my alone time. And that's why now, when I get asked if I feel lonely, my answer is always no. So yeah, back to my mandala page, and I wanted to point out, doesn't that stain in the middle of the top one look like a heart? Can you see it, or is it just me? I did try to accentuate it by painting around it, but that did not look great. So I picked up that pigment by adding more water and using a paper towel. And then I was done with all of the painting, and I wanted to add color to the background. I basically always paint the backgrounds just to tie everything together, and also because I really, really like pulling the washi tape and seeing all of those crisp edges. And then I did remove the tape and the clips, and I was going to call my mandalas done, but for whatever reason, I thought they needed something else, so I added a few extra details with a white gel pen. And that's it. this is the result. I find for me, this is an amazing way to create mandalas. It really reflects my personality. It gives me time to process my thoughts, and the end result, for some reason, always works. Next, we're going to do something you've probably never seen me do in any of my videos. We are going to tear out a page of my sketchbook. Yes, I never tear out pages, not even when I really do not like what I made. But this time we need some loose watercolor paper, so there. Using washi tape, I eyeballed a couple of long rectangles on my page because we are going to paint some bookmarks. And you're probably thinking, how is painting bookmarks going to help me feel less lonely? Well, because these are not going to be for you. I will explain in just a second, but let me just first explain what I decided to do for my bookmarks. In one, I drew a circle towards the top, and then on the opposite side at the bottom, I loosely sketched a moth going over the tape edges. Then I made the pencil lines lighter with an eraser, and I started to add color. Again, here I wanted to use a rainbow gradient. So using watered down colors, I started painting the top and the bottom of the rainbow first. I'm doing it like this to make sure I allow enough space for every color, and that's why I also paint the green in the middle next. As I continue to paint, let me explain why we're making bookmarks and why we're making them for someone else. It's because one of the best ways to feel less lonely is to do something for someone else. You've probably heard this, acts of service, where you are not looking for reciprocation. You're not looking for someone to give something back to you. You're doing it out of the good of your heart, literally. So painting bookmarks is something really simple you can do, and then you can just go to your local library or bookstore and literally place them into random books for a stranger to find. You could write beautiful, inspiring words on them and trust that the universe will deliver those words to the person who needs it most. Or if you don't want to leave your house, you can pop one in an envelope and mail it to that friend or relative you haven't seen in ages and you really care for. And let me pause my rant here for a little bit to show you that I finished adding the first layer of watercolor backgrounds, and I let that dry, and then I erased the lines a little bit more. And then on the other bookmark where I didn't have anything drawn, I drew some simple branches with a little bird on the top one. Then I made the pencil lines as light as I could, and I started to paint a second layer of the rainbow gradient, avoiding the leaves I just drew. So what I'm doing is actually negative painting. Once that second layer for the background dried, I erased the pencil lines further, and I started adding a third layer of paint, again painting around all of the elements I had drawn. And because I wanted a difference between the shades of the branches I had on my drawing, I did go over the top of the second branch with the third layer of paint so that it would look like they were behind by being a little bit darker. Once everything dried, it was time to use my pen again. And again, I'm just going to do these sketchy double lines because I'm really enjoying that look right now. And as I do this, let me go back to what I was saying about brightening someone else's day with a little gesture. Calling in to see how they're doing, leaving a gift for a stranger to find, and letting the universe put it in the right hands. Check in with someone, because it's weird how we all feel lonely, but we don't check in on other people either. If you'd like to see your friend more, then why don't you take the role of checking in and organizing get-togethers, but without expecting to get the same treatment back, because we are all different and we all do things differently. If you do it to get the same exact behavior back, then don't do it, because it's not going to do you any good and you're going to be resentful for people not giving you what you give them. But if you do this from a place of love and your own willingness to share something beautiful with someone else, to share a part of yourself, believe me, your mind will understand feeling lonely was just a choice it made. And hey, if you don't want to paint bookmarks, you can go volunteer somewhere for a couple of hours. Believe me, that's the best way to take the loneliness away from your heart. Go, what have I done? Go volunteer at a dog shelter. Go clean up the beach or your trail where you do trekking. I don't know, all of these things really, really work wonders. Even taking a walk outside, and while you do, leaving little painted rocks for strangers to find. I actually did this. I shared it in this old video of mine. did this, and I remember it made me so happy. I wrote messages on the backs of all of these rocks, and I truly believe the universe put these in the hands of the people that needed to read those words the most. And that really, like, how could I feel lonely after that? That made me happy. I was feeling great. So yeah, I finished the leaf bookmark, and then I started to go over the moth. I removed the tape, I cut the bookmarks, and I tried to fix the moth, which honestly was looking bad. It was super asymmetrical. I should have drawn it perfectly with pencil first and then trace it. So yeah, I try to fix it with patterns, but it's not my best work. Regardless, I still like the result, so I punched a hole on it and threaded some ribbon through. And that's it. Those were our art projects for the day. And yes, of course, I hope these ideas inspire you to grab your own materials and start creating something. But mostly, I hope that some of the reflections I shared with you help you feel less lonely, especially in this season. It's February after all. But remember, I'm not a therapist. I'm just sharing the ideas, concepts, and perspectives that help me so, so much, and that can hopefully help you too. With that, I hope I'll see you on my next video and that you're having the most wonderful day. Bye!